All right, maybe some technical difficulties, but
what's going on?
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You were joining your host, Greg Tompsett, along with my still very handsome, still fairly bald partner in crime, Anthony Prohaska. Anthony, how we doing?
The Bills won. It's the start of Christmas week. We got fun sweaters on. Mine does this. It lights up and does stuff. So we're in a good spot. We are sans our the third piece of this tripod, Mr. Aaron Quinn, who went to the game today.
At the game. Got to go see the victory in person. We'll see. Maybe he'll try to join us here at some point,
But you know what this means now? Aaron now has to go to every game going forward because we've established that when Aaron goes, the Bills win. So undefeated. He has to go to everything. But no, it's good. Christmas week, festive, holiday spirit, all that kind of stuff. Bills win. The Colts did their job last night and the Pats lost. Still some, warts to kind of go over and run through for this team. But one step closer towards the playoffs and a potential division title. And here we are.
That's right. And you guys are joining us because Buffalo Bills have just defeated the Carolina Panthers 31-14 at home. Obviously, not a perfect game. We'll get through all the different things that were there. There were some ups and downs, but ultimately they continued to pull away, show they were the better team, covered the spread, were able to keep everything controlled and in hand. Definitely some things that we'll talk about here, but with the guys that were in play overall, we'll get to the offensive line, some of the other pieces, how they were shorthanded. I thought they, acquitted themselves fairly well in the overall performance. We'll go through, position group by position group, but when you're talking about a 17-point win, putting up 31 points, holding them to 2 scores, I thought that this was the kind of performance that we can be comfortable with moving forward. I don't think it's anything we're gonna, write down in the annals of team history, but getting a comfortable, controlled win to move forward, and then we'll talk about what it means in the future. Winning today was big. So overall, I was pretty happy with it, Anthony.
Yeah, there were some aspects of the team that I was really, really pleased with. I'm going to stop right now and pull up this one. Thank you very much, Cal, for the donation. Appreciate you. And then the comment here, Merry Christmas, guys. Is it me or was just still running for his life because his line is as useful as a screen door on a submarine? That's
so I think the Justice Josh there. Yep. Yeah, I will say Josh could probably use some Uncle Jumbos today. He's going to be feeling it after this game. Maybe not quite as much as Cam Newton, I guess, in the comparison. Yeah. Cam took a beating, but yeah, we'll get to it here. Obviously not great on the offensive line. Not great early by Josh. He had some misses, and a couple of those sacks were on him today. But overall, that offensive line of that protection was not great. We got another one already.
No, so yeah, we got another one. And, Kel, to your point, I think we'll start to get into some of that when we break down the position groupings and talking about Josh and talking about the offensive line. But there are some things to break down there. And another comment here from Sarah Cat 2012. My birthday is next Sunday. All I want is a Bills win and the AFC East lead. First of all, happy early birthday. Second of all, 1,000% want that win. Yeah, but there, in pulling up that first comment there from Kel with the super chat, I think the play of the offensive line is something that stands out, not in a positive way, but overall, I think, again, when you win a game 31-14, and this is kind of going back to the earlier theme of the Bills this year, right? Like not playing their best in all phases, but somehow winning by 17 points. And then you get a team that has just some really terrible luck with the Panthers, and their kicker goes down early and it influences their game plan. But then in turn, you still have to execute and take advantage of that if you are the Bills, which I thought they did. They played aggressive on the defensive side of the ball and even offensively to a degree at some times. But yeah, it's important to get the win. I feel meh overall because the offensive line still scares me, but I am very happy knowing that if the Bills beat the Patriots and then continue to win out, the AFC East is there. And that's the big picture thinking we need right now. This team is still very capable of winning this division, having a home playoff game, and then you get in the dance and who knows what can happen.
Yeah, there's a couple things. I'm obviously the offensive line was a problem today, and let's just start there. We'll work through our normal progression, but we're going to get to the offensive line pretty soon, anyways. We'll just dive right into it. I'm torn on one, I didn't expect it to be great today. You're
Mm-hmm.
telling me that we're losing Deion Dawkins and John Feliciano on short notice, where he took all the practice reps with the starters. Then all of a sudden you have to flip Ike Botker back to left and bring in Cody Ford at right. It means Spencer Brown moving from right tackle to left tackle. It means Darrell Williams moving from right guard to right tackle. We then also had to have reps from Tommy Doyle because Spencer Brown had 5 penalties during the game. All those things combined, then you add to that, we're going against Hassan Reddick and Brian Burns. I was expecting it to be a challenge, and then it was. When you tell me that ultimately they put up 31 points, they were able to keep the ball moving. There wasn't anything egregious for, and honestly, some of the sacks were on Josh. 2 of them I had were on Josh, on him holding the ball too long. If anything, we'll get to the coverage down the field for the Panthers when we get to the receivers and tight ends. I thought that the offensive line struggled today. I don't know that they honestly struggled worse than I expected. I had a pretty low bar with the defensive line they were going against and 2 starters being out, and they were about as rough as I expected. So I'm still going to tell myself a story that if we get Deion Dawkins back and John Feliciano back, Darrell Williams back to right guard, Spencer Brown back to right tackle, all the pieces moving back around, that it's passable and survivable. I'm going to tell myself that story and just hope that we get everybody back able to play next Sunday.
Yeah, that's the same story I'm roughly kind of telling myself. I set a similar bar coming into this game, even before Deion Dawkins tested positive and was out for this game. This is a good front for Carolina. Oh, I don't care. We're still going to read it. Thank you very much, Kel, for the donation. And then the comment says, here's a little more because it's Christmas. No need to read it out. Ho, ho, ho.
Ho, ho, ho. All right.
Well played. This is a good Carolina defense. They came into this game 10th in DVOA. They have good, solid players all around. Brian Burns is a stud. Hassan Reddick is top tier, or is a top tier type of player. Not a stud, not elite, but still very good. Shaq Thompson can still play. We all still love Jeremy Chin. He showed up today with an interception.
That was ridiculous.
Such a night. He leveraged coverage all day. Very well, splitting guys and tempting Josh Allen into certain throws and making tackles. He's good. This is still a good unit. And coming into this game, I thought the trench line was a pure advantage for Carolina. Like, if you're telling me Brian Burns and Hassan Reddick versus our offensive line, I'm taking Burns and Reddick every day. And then Dawkins goes down. You have to kick Spencer Brown over to left tackle, where we're still seeing him struggle at right tackle at times, which again is to be expected. That I don't think that's a horrible thing to point out, that Spencer Brown is struggling. He is very raw. So he struggled at times and looked vulnerable at times at right tackle. He's much more comfortable at right tackle than left tackle. So you have this raw rookie that you have to switch to left tackle, and then the rest of the line jumbling happens, like you mentioned, Greg, and it could have been an easy opportunity for Carolina to take advantage of. They did early, I thought, and really throughout the day, whenever Carolina blitzed, there were issues and problems up front for the Bills. And then the larger problem that connects to, you mentioned some of the sacks that Josh Allen kind of created. I thought the one, especially on like 2 plays after Spencer Brown got flagged for the taunting call, and then he comes in, the pocket was good. Josh could have stayed in that pocket, but he breaks the pocket and scrambles to the right and then comes back. Spencer Brown gets beat inside. I thought Josh caused that, in addition to the coverage downfield that clearly caused it.
You add in some of that with the position that they were in on the field, and then all of a sudden it's, instead of maybe we're punting from the 20, we're punting from the 6. Then Hawk is kind of in an awkward position back in the end zone and having to rush it. It just was, that was a rough one.
Yeah, not great. But again, that stems from Josh feeling skittish in the pocket because of what he's dealt with all year and what he dealt with in the beginning of this game. So this offensive line, again, this is something every week we are going to have to deal with. This Bills offensive line can get overmatched at times. They can be vulnerable at times and give up big plays for the defense and look bad. And then at other times, they will be above average. They will do their job. They will hold a good pocket for Josh. We're going to have to ride this roller coaster for the rest of the year because this is who the Bills are. But that being said, I thought they performed decently well in the run game. Got some pin and pulls.
Especially late, late, where you're talking about them in a 4-minute drill offense where the Panthers knew they were running the ball. That's the hardest time to run the ball. I was honestly impressed. We haven't seen a lot of that. We're barely good at running the ball when we trick them and have a light box, let alone when they're stacking the box and they know what's coming. I was honestly pretty impressed, like in that stretch of it. And, it is honestly, if you think about it, inserting Ford, Williams, and Brown at the tackles, run blocking should be what we're better at. That's what those guys are better at. So, in the grand scheme of things, it's not, I guess, not shocking. But yeah, I thought that part of it was at least a glimmer of hope. And again, there were stretches there where Josh had time, and we'll get to it with the receivers and tight ends, that their coverage downfield. I can't wait to watch this one back because they had to be fantastic several times.
Yeah, I really want to see what the all-22 looks like from the coverage standpoint for Carolina. And, again, we mentioned Chin and Burns and Reddick. We still didn't – I know everybody wants to dunk on Gilmore, but Gilmore is still a good corner, and C.J. Henderson is a good corner. So they have ability on this defense, and you can either win with your front or you can win with your second and third levels. And some of the sacks they won with their front, and some of the sacks they won with their second and third levels in coverage. So I think that's part of it too, that we get lost in, right? Like as fans of a team, when something happens, I think the initial thing, especially with how the Bills have struggled at times this year, that initial thought is to be like, oh, this guy sucks, and this play call was terrible. What a horrible design. But sometimes you just got to tip your cap to the other team, because one, they're also professionals, and two, in the case of Carolina, they have good guys on that defense, and they made life difficult for the Bills offense at times, but at the end of the day, they still put up 31. Oh,
got a super chat here from Dave Arena. Happy holidays, guys. Still get confused with all the COVID protocols and rules. If Dawkins is healthy enough to play, when can he come back? I will say a lot of things were just changed. Literally agreed to yesterday. The changes don't take place until after the Tuesday night games. It's now turning into more self-reporting. There are some differences, again, based on who is and who is not vaccinated. The biggest one is symptoms. They're focusing more on symptoms. If you are showing symptoms, you need to self-report. You need to miss games. There does seem to be a path for people who are asymptomatic, not showing symptoms, and I believe vaccinated. I don't know. I'll have to confirm that they may be able to play more quickly and get that turned around and not miss time. I have to read through it again more carefully once we get through these games. But there is change coming from those protocols. I need to understand how it works and what that does for Feliciano and Dawkins. I don't know their vaccination status. I don't know whether they're having symptoms or not. All we know is that they both tested positive. This was not close contact. They were out because they tested positive. So now with the new protocols, whether they have symptoms or not will impact whether they're allowed to come back. And I believe that's going to be the main part. But again, I need to read more on that to know who's eligible back for New England.
So long story short, Dave, it's super complicated because the NFL decided they want to tweak everything at the last minute and not lose games or money. So it's complicated.
Yeah, tons of fun. So let's go back into our normal rotation here and talk about, normally the centerpiece of most conversation, Joshua Allen. Josh went 19 of 34 for 210 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 4 times. I think, again, both of us kind of agreed that half of those were on those. Hey, for anybody listening and checking in, a couple of people in the chat have Aaron. He said he misses everybody, misses us. He's stuck in the parking lots and frozen to his core. So he was there for the game. Having a good time here, but we miss him dearly on the post-game show. He will be back for that Patriots game next week. And I'll throw in Joe here. Sorry about that. Joe and Gabe Davis murdered him in his fantasy playoffs. I guess that's a better way to go. If you're going to get knocked out and crushed, have it be by a beloved Buffalo Bill. But that still does kind of hurt. But again, Josh, not a perfect game today, not a great game today. He had those, hyped up throws early where he was missing high on everyone. I will say maybe a little bit of it was him not being able to step into throws because of the toe. We know he only ran like once or twice during the entire game, and they were all scrambles, no called runs. So certainly they were kind of protecting that. He definitely was jacked up early on, missing targets. And then a couple times I always try to, take it with a grain of salt. I know when you're getting pressure a lot early, it's hard not to leave some pockets or not to invite some of those. There were several where I'll give him a break on that, on not finding somebody downfield, but throw it away. Don't sit there and then take the sack. Throw the ball away. and get it out of there. So, ultimately the Panthers ended up with 4 sacks and 6 hits. So 10 total hits on Josh Allen. That's a lot. But I don't know that it was his best game as a Buffalo Bill. I don't know that we're going to remember this one as something great. I think that he was put in a rough spot, had a lot of pressure, and also compounded it a little bit with some misses that he missed some open guys, had some bad throws, and then held the ball a little bit too long. So, ultimately he got the W, scored 3 touchdowns, led the team on multiple scoring drives, but not a historic performance by any means.
No, just overall, good enough to get the job done. Made some really good throws, made some decisions that, as you mentioned, were less than ideal. The toe is a really interesting one, and you mentioned it. Like, obviously, he played in this game and he practiced and that, but I wonder, like, is there some sort of impact to it, especially when you saw those high throws coming early and some inaccuracy? But then at the same time, you can just be like, well, is that maybe more just sugar high excitement Josh Allen, which rears his ugly head from time to time?
And then you add in that laser on the one touchdown was ridiculous, where he fitted in to Davis in the end. So obviously he was able to step into some of them.
So then you see that and you're like, oh no, he's good. And then you see the next one and you're like, oh no, maybe not. Like, you just don't know where he's at. And again, I think we deserve to give Carolina again some credit. They have a good defense. They made life difficult for the Bills offense at times. But Josh was not the sharpest today. Good enough to get the job done. Again, we're sitting here nitpicking performance from a QB who threw for 3 touchdowns, and the team scored 31 points and they won by 17. But at the end of the day, we're looking to see what's sustainable going forward as the Bills try to win the division, at the very least get to the playoffs and make a run. So his performance, not an ideal Josh day, not something that you would especially like to see him. I think it would have been nice if he could have strung another nice performance, especially after what he did in the second half of Tampa Bay last week. It would have been nice if we got to see another strong effort from the offense and kind of think, okay, you know what, maybe some of that 2020 Bills offense is back. But he executed when he needed to, spread the ball around, had some good play from his weapons, and again, put up 31 points, and here we are with another win.
Yeah, again, it is fun to think about how high our standards have gone with Josh. That we're like, 210 yards, 3 touchdowns, 24 rushing. Man, really disappointing. So it's fun to be able to be in that position that this is now an off game for him. But ultimately, we need him to be better to make a run. I will say, with the running game today, as we kind of pivot over there, I was impressed with Devin Singletary. I thought he ran hard. I thought he created some misses in different areas. Ultimately, the box score is nothing amazing. 22 carries for 86 yards, barely just under 4 yards a carry. But he created in times where it was needed. And to be able to be in that kind of position with, a good Panthers front and being able to limit the way that they have. I like that they mixed in some of the jet motion back. We saw a lot of it today, way more than we have. I like that Josh was under center with a lot of play action. The percentage of how many passes were play action, it had to be over 50-50 of what was there. It was a ton during the game. So overall, I thought that they acquitted themselves well. I thought Singletary looked solid. He's never going to be some explosive, amazing athlete. I thought he created where he had chances to, and I thought he was good.
1,000%. And Ned, I know you put a super chat comment in there. I think it ties in perfectly with some offensive line conversation. So we will get to that in a minute, but thank you for the donation. Greg, I think you were spot on. Like, coming into this game, the Panthers 10th in defensive DVOA, and as I go back to my handy dandy notebook here, they're 6th in DVOA against the pass, but they were 21st against the run. Combine that with what Burns and Reddick are able to do off the edge, combined with Dawkins being out, and even with him being in there, the offensive line not being a strength for the Bills this year, I wanted to see a strong running game coming into this game against Carolina. When I was on the air raid hour this morning for the pregame, my hot take or bold prediction was that the Bills running backs would collectively combine for 100 yards. Came close, almost with Singletary on his own. But I thought that was a needed plan of attack. And we came out early on that first drive, went more pass. then started to mix in the run, then started to mix in that play action. You started to see the Bills move the ball, and you got to give some credit to the offensive line, which is the next grouping we'll talk about. But I think Devin Singletary, to your point, deserves a decent amount of credit for this performance. He pressed things horizontally and set blocks up nice. He got upfield. There were a couple runs where he made something out of nothing, drew some penalties on some stuff and made some guys miss, broke some tackles, and that's a huge positive. I still would like to see Breida get the ball some because of the burst, but it's really interesting in this one too to see how they committed a little more to the run. Granted, you got to take some final metrics and situational things into account.
Some of that 4-minute drill late, it's probably not quite. Right now, it's like 45, 55, 34 pass attempts to 27 rush attempts. And I think all 3 of Josh's were scrambles. So technically from a play call standpoint, you're talking about 37-24, which is honestly, I mean, not far off of our normal 60-40. That's more like 48, 58-42. But it's probably a little skewed by the late drives early. We were still our normal 65% in neutral game script.
But then seeing, like, even if they're going, even if it's 60-40, 65-35, whatever, have we seen the 35 all come from like pretty much one guy? Like we've seen the Singletary Moss, we've seen Singletary Moss Breida, we've seen Singletary Breida, like they go back and forth. We didn't even get to see what Breida potentially could look like because it was Singletary every single play, every single drive. And he answered today. He played well, had a touchdown, had some nice explosive plays. I still would like to see Breida because he offers something that no other running back on this team has. But that being said, good performance from Devin Singletary. They used him in pass protection a bit today as well when they tried to go a little more heavier protection and not just use 5 because Carolina was starting to tee off on the Bills offense. But an encouraging performance. And again, something we need. We need someone in the backfield that defenses have to account for.
Really appreciate you, Randy. Merry Christmas, guys. Thanks for all the wonderful content in many different ways this year so far, which is a tough task with a team that's really battling some issues. Cover One remains the best Bills content by far. Pats are still a tough road ahead. Absolutely appreciate that. That means so much to us that you guys really make this fully worthwhile and everything that we do. And I do want to circle back to the one that Ned had put up about
I was literally
Josh
just
holding
doing
onto the ball and has been kind of skittish. Are we really that much better with Feliciano and Dawkins back? I'm going to tie this in as we pivot to receivers and tight ends. One, yes, they are better. Like Dawkins is our best offensive lineman, and Feliciano at least has continuity. So the domino effect of those guys being in and everybody else going back to their normal positions, I do think there's a material difference. Like there is a difference. We go from being a bad offensive line to being an average offensive line. We're not a great offensive line, even with all 5 of our top guys back, but we're average. And when you're average and have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and guys like that, that can be enough to be able to pull something off. I will add in, today was a little frustrating. And I know, you have a really good defense, the number 1 DVOA pass defense in the NFL. Fantastic in everything that they do. I think number 1 in yards against. And what did you list them as in DVOA? Were they number 1 in yeah.
6th against the pass, 21st against the run.
Yeah, 6th in DVOA, number 1 in yards allowed. And they're obviously very, very talented. There were several plays where I was just yelling at my TV, throw the ball. Who's open? Why? What is going on? Why is he sitting there padding? Get rid of the ball. I have to assume Josh Allen's not dumb. He's been firing that ball all year long, sometimes into tight coverage. There had to have been really good coverage downfield. Now, you add that in, I don't know how much of that is on Stephon Diggs, is on Gabriel Davis, is on Dawson Knox, is on Cole Beasley, is on Isaiah McKenzie. I mentioned it in the preview show. One of the things I was concerned about that people underestimated about Gabriel Davis was with Emmanuel Sanders being out is that, hey, I love his physical ability. We saw him get loose for the touchdowns. This is not any negative on him, but in some of those 20-20 drives where you just need somebody to get open on 3rd and 6, that's not what Gabriel Davis does. He's not going to shake his guy and create separation and get open for a play there. We do miss Emmanuel Sanders in some of those spots today, but we still should have seen more from Cole Beasley and more from Stephon Diggs. I know, again, Stephon Gilmore is a fantastic corner. He's playing fantastic football since he got to Carolina, even though he missed the first part of the year. I can't wait to see the all 22 because it seemed like there was some amazing coverage here that we normally don't see these receivers get locked down the way they did today.
Yeah, there's been a decent amount of that all year. We've seen times where Josh is struggling to find guys getting open, and it's hard for the receivers to get open. And I think step one of that is if you can get pressure with just 4, then you're able to drop 7 into coverage. And if you can do that, that's a win somewhat for the defense, because if you're looking at it, right, say the defense drops 7 into coverage, you've at the very least got 5 on the offensive line, and then the quarterback makes 6. So at best, you're sending 5 guys into run routes versus 7. There's a numbers advantage for the defense. Then if you have to keep in a tight end or you have to keep in a running back because you need to help on the 4 that are causing chaos, like Brian Burns and Hassan Reddick, now all of a sudden you've got less guys running into coverage for the defense. You have an even bigger coverage advantage for the defense. And I'm thinking that was some of it today, just from looking at how the rush schemes were coming off. The all 22 in the tape will really tell the tale there, but it was tough for this offense at times to get open, and just things seemed hard. It seemed hard for them to break out and really detach. And I think you're spot on with Gabriel Davis. We love Gabriel Davis here. Greg, I know you were on GR and you talked about him. I mentioned him several times on Twitter and the film room. His touchdown on the 4th and 2 is a microcosm of why he's so valuable. You motion him in, right? And that indicates run to the defense. He sells the run. He comes in, he makes contact with his man, he holds it, boom, releases wide open, touchdown, syncs up perfectly with Josh. That's something that he adds to this offense because it allows you to stay multiple and it keeps the defense off balance. That is a huge pro for him, in addition to his size, his body type, and his ability to get vertical, even though he only runs like a 4.5 40. Josh just missed him on that deep ball. A really good route that he bursted on. But you're spot on with the nuance pieces of the game. He's still a second-year receiver. There's certain times where, like, I don't think it's, and people may think I'm wrong, and I don't want this to seem like an insult, but if I have a play right now and it's like, okay, you can either pick Gabriel Davis or Manny Sands to win one-on-one and get open, and you need this conversion, I'm taking Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah. And that's no slight against Gabriel Davis. I just trust Emmanuel Sanders given his record and his pedigree and what he's done and the production that's there. It'll be awesome when he's healthy and he's back, because then we have a full complement of weaponry. But Gabriel Davis showed up good today, and I'm very interested. You mentioned the Stephon Diggs piece. The route was beautiful on his touchdown, the back shoulder throw. Him and Josh both recognize that Gilmore's staying over the top. They throw the back shoulder, touchdown, good. We didn't see a lot of Diggs going throughout the entire game. I'm wondering what that coverage looked like. Were they double teaming him? Was it just Gilmore? I mean, he finishes the day with only 4 catches for 35 yards on 7 targets. Cole Beasley led the team in targets with 8. He also had 4 for 35. And then Davis with 5 for 85, 2 touchdowns on 7 targets. Also, Dawson Knox, will mention him as well. 5 targets, 4 catches, 38 yards. So not a stellar day from a statistical perspective, but they executed when they needed to, move the ball well. And yeah, the tape is going to be real interesting to see where they struggled.
So since we robbed you in our last show, I'll let you lead off for your West Herr drive of the game, just to make sure that you're able to get yours in.
I appreciate it, but I feel like it still doesn't count because Aaron's not here to rob me of it. So the odds of being robbed have decreased here because there's only one person opposite me. But nonetheless, I thank you and I appreciate that. I'm torn. I think I'm going to go with the second touchdown drive that put the Bills up 14-0. And just from the perspective of Carolina had no kicker. Cam Newton's average depth of target coming into this game was 7 yards average depth of target. Even if you just go back to last week, he had 23 passes. Only 2 of them were attempted above 20 yards. That's a microcosm of what he's been. They do not push the ball downfield. They want to run the ball. Their line has struggled at times. I thought going up by a 2-touchdown margin early, even though it was early, forced Carolina into more of a game script that favors the Bills defense. It did not allow them to just, okay, we're just going to sit back and run QB powers and attack the inside of the line. We're not just going to be able to run the ball nonstop. It allowed the Bills to sell out a little bit, play the offense into their hand a little bit more. I thought getting out early was big to, one, hinder Carolina, but two, establish a little more confidence for the Bills, because despite the fact that they fought back last week, throughout the year, we've seen things not go so great when they've gone down early. So get the monkey off the back a little bit, go up early. That second touchdown drive was big for me. It ended up being 5 plays, 57 yards in 2 minutes and 36 seconds. That was the one that had the Stephon Diggs touchdown from Josh Allen, which I just thought was really beautiful. They both recognize something. They're in sync. Little Justin Timberlake and JC Chazé right there. And Diggs runs a nice route, gets a touchdown, and beats Stephon Gilmore, which, man, is really sad to see. I hate it when Stephon Gilmore gets beat for touchdowns because he's such a great guy.
Real shame.
He'll be back next week as a Bills legend.
Next, the next option I debated, because there were two that I considered. I like the one that you chose as well. That third touchdown drive is probably the most statistically impressive. 10 plays, 74 yards, 3 minutes and 42 seconds. But I want to give a shout out to the last touchdown. This is when they're going through. It was very much a traditional 4-minute drive offense, where that has not been our specialty, being able to get first downs running the ball when they're expecting the run to come. They were able to go through, and at one point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
7, 8, 24,
eight straight run plays to get down into that position for a fourth down conversion. And then on the fourth down conversion, in a spot where I can't lie, I expected Sean McDermott to kick the field goal.
I would have liked it for my fantasy teams. I have Tyler Bass.
I can't lie, I cared because I had the Bills by minus 10.5, and I was like, okay, get points here. Don't kneel it out. Get points. I need the field goal. But I kind of expected him to, just because, like, hey, going up 13 just kind of puts it, out of reach mentally there. But to go through, and after running the ball 8 straight plays in a game where you had it under control, there really wasn't any real threat of them coming back to get 2 touchdowns and a stop of us in between. That wasn't realistically going to happen here with everything we were seeing from Cam Newton. To see them go for it, but not only go for it, but go for it with a naked bootleg to Josh Allen on play action. You described the play perfectly. Gabe Davis comes in motion back to a tight kind of nub alignment, and is right there, fakes the run block because he'd been a fantastic run blocker all game, makes contact with the defender, leaks out. Josh Allen hits him wide open, nobody near him for the touchdown. And that's not the kind of aggressive, close it out, step on the throat kind of play that we've seen from them so far. And I love that mentality of like, hey, we're the better team here. We're going to be able to close this out and then come back and obviously we'll talk about it in the defense when we switch over. But my West Herr drive of the game was that kind of close out, step on the throat drive to be able to really take command and make it look like the comfortable win that it was throughout most of the day, 31-14. Why don't you kick us off here with the defensive line? What did you think about with the front for today?
I really would have liked to see the defensive line get pressure on Cam with just rushing 4. It would have been nice if we did not need to blitz the Panthers offense consistently. It worked to a degree when we blitzed. We saw Tremaine Edmonds.
And they started to get home with fewer later. There was some later.
Very true. Especially F.A. Obata.
The 2 Obata ones, they only sent 4.
Beautiful. Yep. And he wins one-on-one, beats his man around the edge. Really nice to see from him. And probably nice for him because it's a 1-2 sack game. And 2, it comes against a former team. That's always nice to go up against a former employer and stick it to him. But it would have been nice if we could have seen more pressure from that front 4. Coming into this game, Carolina was 28th in pass blocking efficiency. They had a whole bunch of drama up front. They were beaten regularly by Atlanta last week with stunts in different games up front. It would have been great that we could have seen, okay, let's rotate our front 4, get some pressure with that. Jerry Hughes had a couple nice plays at times. Mario Addison showed up at times, but there was more in the run game and less in the pass rush. And I think that's just, I'm torn on this defensive line so far for this year because the pressure metrics are there. And sometimes they really show up in the way you want them to, but they're not impacting this game regularly enough from a week-to-week perspective. And if we use this Carolina game as a microcosm, I think that's a really good way to look at it. This Carolina unit was unable to move the ball through the air throughout the year with Cam Newton. His arm still isn't where it needs to be. They are an offensive line that has not protected well up front, and they've had some holes and had some vulnerabilities. Really would have liked to see the Bills attack them and be able to win with just 4. And the more we have to start committing guys up front to blitz, it's disadvantageous to us because with Tre'Davious White out, as well as the secondary has continued to play, at some point we are going to come up against a team that will be able to burn us in that secondary and in those second and third levels. So the better we can do with just our front 4 holding it down in pass rush, the better this team will go. We need that going forward. And then from a run perspective, some of their fits were really good. I really want to see the tape because there were some runs where we got gouged a little bit, but Harrison Phillips had a couple real nice flashes in the run. So did Starla Tule. So did Greg Rousseau. Basham even had a nice play as well.
I was going to say, he had a stretch there where it was the first time I consistently noticed him all year.
Making good plays. Vernon Butler even showed up a couple times today. I had some nice, kept Cam in the pocket, made some plays in the run. So there was some good and mixed in with the bad there and the bigger plays. But overall, I thought this Bills defensive line played how we've seen so far with this year. They're good enough to allow the Bills to get the win. They're not vulnerable. They're not making superstar or stud plays, but they're not doing something that's going to handicap you and lose the game. They're just towing that line and then moving up and down sporadically and making some plays and missing some.
Yeah. Mark Robbins asked a good question here early on. I wanted to save it and came back to it. Is Obata someone we should be looking to re-sign, or is this boosting his numbers against poor teams like Groot versus Miami? And Epinesa did that too. I will say, this was a nice flash. I think it gives me some reason to wonder, hey, should we see him rotate in a little bit more here? Because he won in a one-on-one setting that we don't see a lot of our guys do.
Yes.
And I'll say, I haven't seen Mario Addison win like that a lot. So I'm intrigued to see a little bit more from him. And I would welcome him back, but almost in kind of a, hey, he can come fight for a roster spot next year. We don't know right now. Obata, Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes, none of those guys are under contract for next year. So we have roster spots available next year. I'll be fine if Efe Obata is one of them. I don't know that he's someone that I now have it that, we need to re-sign him for money that matters and be able to get him back. He hasn't shown enough there. I'm fine if we go again and it's whatever it was, 1.75 or $2 million. He can get a little bit more than the minimum again. I'm fine with that, but I don't know that I want to guarantee him a ton.
And his versatility, he can kick inside and do some things. And anybody who can win one-on-one, like you mentioned, because we, unfortunately, other than Ed Oliver, we don't really have anyone on the defensive line who is winning one-on-one consistently and affecting the offense.
Yeah, it was there, and being able to go through. Hi, Mom. My mom, good enough to get a needed win. We absolutely was
spot on.
And being able to go through this kind of, I know the defensive line people get very frustrated with. My mom likes my
That's my boy.
Yeah, you'll see this at Christmas Eve at Grandma's. Don't worry, I'm gonna wear this.
Spoiler.
I'm gonna wear this at Christmas Eve at Grandma's. So while we're talking about family, might as well insert this too. My cousin Jordan got to go to his first home Bills game today. Nice. He just got out of military leave, literally flew in yesterday. They had a homecoming party for him last night, and I set him up with Drew Gear over at the Rock Power Report and Amon, who does a lot of the awesome Grills Mafia barbecue stuff. They took care of him in the in the tailgate, and then took him into the game, and he had an awesome time. Called me from the game and sent a bunch of pictures.
He now has to go to every single game.
So yes, apparently now I need to send Jordan to every game to be able to be our good luck charm. Him and Aaron there were the right combo. But yeah, this defensive line, it's a mix. People get frustrated because they throw around the investments that we've made. But I got to tell you, when you look around the league, an awful lot of the monster guys are guys like Brian Burns and guys like, Nick Bosa and Joey Bosa and Myles Garrett and guys who are drafted in spots we didn't draft in. They weren't guys drafted 30th overall and in the second round and making moderate money. They're the guys making $25 million and $20 million. And don't get me wrong, I want more from this, but I think maybe we overstate the aggregate of the investments made versus that, oh, I want someone to be this monstrous ball winner every single time that's just going to beat his man one-on-one. We don't have a Khalil, a Khalil Mack, a guy like that in our group.
And you know what, people also, on that point, people also conflate production of the picks. Like how many people are, well, we took AJ Epinesa when we could have taken like DK Metcalf or whatever it was that year. And look what Metcalf is doing. And it's like, well, what a receiver is doing on a certain team versus what a defensive end is doing on your team, they're different. So everybody plays that game as well, and it all compiles exactly to your point.
And it's always the same couple guys. It's always DK Metcalf or Creed Humphrey this year. And don't get me wrong, I wanted Creed Humphrey too. You wanted Creed Humphrey. We were hoping that they took him. Every single team is upset that they passed on Creed Humphrey. 32 teams passed on him twice. There's a reason for that. Like, we're not the only ones who missed out. If you go in every other fan base's mentions, there's an awful lot of Creed Humphrey floating around there that like, oh, we should have taken him. Like, no one owns the corner of, no, I was the one who said we should take Creed. No. Settle down.
No, everybody, I wanted Creed. No.
You guys had no idea who this guy even was. I discovered him. It's, you know, it's just part of this. People can do that everywhere. Wait till you guys find out where Tom Brady went in the draft. You are going to be so surprised.
Who?
It's just something that this happens all the time, to be able to be in those positions. And we nitpick the same players all the time. Every single team, if you hit on a third of your draft picks and you get 2 contributors, that's a solid draft. If you get 3 contributors out of a draft, that's a great draft. Most teams get 1 or 2 players that contribute out of an entire draft class. So this idea that, oh, we would have hit on every single one of these and stacked up 7 contributing draft picks, it just never happened. So I get the frustration. I want more from this defensive line. I want that to be there. A game like today where you get 6 quarterback hits and 4 sacks plus a good healthy amount more pressures. That's what we want. If we're able to get this kind of production the rest of the way, we're going to be just fine. We're not all of a sudden going to just inherit some amazing one-on-one wrecking crew. That's just not how this is going to work.
There you go. I discovered
thank you. I'm glad that you heard about him from us talking about him. And again, I mean that genuinely. We don't wave that flag, even though all of us were saying, man, what a great fit. I was joking about how he had a camo hat and he had the, you know, his faith in his profile, and he was a high school wrestler, and he fit a position of need, and was at a school that we had coaching connections with. Like, he checked every single box. I thought it was the easiest slam dunk of any draft pick that we predicted. But again, I'm not going to be silly to assume that the guys at Cover One were the only people talking about Creed Humphrey. Everybody liked him. And did I say some swear words at my TV when they announced Carlos Basham? I did. I said some swear words at my TV when they announced Carlos Basham, but I know I'm not the only one that felt that way, so I don't harp on it or try to wave that flag around that, oh, I was the one who told you we should have taken Creed Humphrey. Yeah, like, everybody thought that. Lots of people were on that boat. Take us into the linebackers today. I had a lot of up and down. I got frustrated with Matt Milano today more than I normally do. Like, I don't know that today was a great day by him. Some of the movement and some of the plays where I knew what Cam Newton was doing in the backfield and that he was going to wait, hesitate, take a sidestep, and then pick a spot to run a draw. Was that hard to recognize or to read? There were several of those where I was a little frustrated. I won't give him a hard time on losing Amir Abdullah out of the backfield on the one touchdown. I think he read outside leverage. It was a nice option route that Abdullah, cut back in. But I would say, I would say that it wasn't Matt Milano's best game as a Buffalo Bill today.
No, I would agree with that. And, it's weird because it's like a fine line of you know what's going to come from Carolina, but it's like a numbers advantage for them. Like, if you're running with your QB, that means you have another guy that can block and another option for whether it's play action or run action or different types of creative things, or even if it's just a straight QB power draw.
And Abdullah and Hubbard weren't great today, but you have to respect the fact that he could give the ball. Even 1,000%. If in the back of your head it's 90% that he's keeping it, you have to respect the fact that he could give.
Yeah, you can't just completely sell out. It's the same thing like with defending the triple option back in the day. Like, you still have to honor that there's a running back, that there's a pitch man back there, so you can't just come right down and kill the QB. And that's the design of that entire option of the offense, to be able to make that defense hesitate. And then when you add in receivers doing bubble screens and slants and glance routes and all these things, It adds layers. So it's not the most straightforward thing to defend, even if you know when it's coming. But to your point, not the strongest day for Matt Milano. Tremaine Edmonds had a couple nice plays. He had that nice stick on Cam Newton on the
Yeah.
2-point conversion. He engaged in a block, shook it off, and stuck Cam and dropped him right down. It's funny in thinking about it. This is another reason I want to see the All-22 for the defense. Yeah, I didn't really notice the linebackers a lot other than like a couple flash plays from Edmonds, a couple plays where Milano got beat.
Both of them had a couple nice blitzes.
Yep, both had some nice.
Both got home on one blitz, and both of them had two like forced bad throws, and the one Edmonds would have knocked down, but Jerry Hughes knocked it down right in front of him. Both of them had some well-timed blitzes, even though, again, the story of our season, good blitz doesn't get all the way home. But both of them were there with some well-timed ones.
Yeah, over and over. How much, man? Oh, man, we almost got there. Oh, man, we almost got there on that one. Oh, man, we almost got there on that one.
Don't even start it. Wait till we get to the DBs because my almost brand is coming.
Oh, God, that's going to be – I know exactly where you're going to go for with that one. But, yeah, there was some nice –
A quick one here besides our starting two. Answer this for a lot of folks. What does it mean? What would it mean for A.J. Klein to come on the field more, especially against obvious rushing teams, whether that was New England 2 weeks ago, whether that's a team like Carolina today? Strategically, what's a reason that maybe we don't see A.J. Klein as much as what some people might think?
I think the first thing you have to take into account is what type of rushing team are they and how they're doing it. So, for instance, like everybody knows Carolina wants to run the ball, even with Cam Newton, right? They are still in 11 personnel 64% of the time coming into this game. So that means they're running with 3 wide receiver sets 64% of the time. If you try to, and again, this is just basic level, if you bring in A.J. Klein and you want to go heavier, I don't want to say base because our base is nickel at this point, but you want to go 3 linebacker sets, you are inviting them to attack you on the perimeter with those RPO looks. And suddenly, all of a sudden, those handoffs and those gives on those RPO looks and those read options and zone reads, all of a sudden, those looks start to funnel into different ways. And if you're running an RPO, instead of giving it, you're now kicking it out to the bubble. You're kicking it out to the slant. You're taking advantage of things in the pass game.
They tried that one bubble. They were guessing.
The one
Carolina tried that one bubble screen to Robbie Anderson, assuming we were going to sell out on the QB draw, and Newton just threw a horrible ball.
Yep, and it did not work out, and Levi made a great read. And so the key is always knowing what kind of rushing team. Is it a rushing team that, well, they run the ball a lot, but they run it out of 3 wide receiver sets, or they run the ball a lot and they use 2 tight ends and they use 2 running backs. But even if they use 2 running backs, you can put in A.J. Klein. But if the 2 running backs are Abdullah and Hubbard, I would still consider that almost an advantage for Carolina because both of those guys can function in the pass game, and that's not Klein's strong suit. You got to know the personnel of your opponent. And that being said, I think that's why you don't see Klein always in against these heavier rushing teams. And then also the other side of it is that Taron Johnson plays the run really well.
That's the simplest one
for nickel corner. Boom, there you go.
Who comes off the field? Bringing A.J. Klein on sounds great until you realize, it means we take Taron Johnson off. Taron Johnson's a good run defender. He's a really good tackler.
He's a good blitzer.
And he's a great corner. So now I actually wondered, and especially against against New England, when we got to 25 straight runs or whatever it was, I honestly would have gotten to the point of being like, all right, fine, just take Dane Jackson off, kick Taron Johnson out, and bring A.J. Klein in as an 11th defender, and just trust that, hey, they're not going to throw it over Taron's head. His limitations as an outside coverage corner and the reach and the arm length and the physicality that he lacks, and why we wouldn't want him out there against Mike Evans, I'm fine with it if it's in the wind against Nelson Aguilar. I do wish we had pivoted at that point. In a game like this, I don't want to risk that when it's Robbie Anderson. I don't want to risk that when it's DJ Moore getting deep. We saw if Cam had the arm that he used to have, DJ Moore roasted Dane Jackson on the one. It would have been a touchdown. So there are times where we still miss it there, and we'll use this point to pivot over to the DBs. I have to go back and search my game day thread, and everybody who doesn't follow here, I do a game day thread every single game.
It's marvelous.
Goes through and react to every single play, different situational things, hot takes, jokes, all kinds of different things. But the whole way through, you can see the entire game. I want to search how many times I wrote the word almost, because I feel like there were 10 almost interceptions. That every single time the ball fluttered up into the air, it fell to the ground and just missed.
Or even the one that literally goes through Taron Johnson's hands and past Poyer, and then
while Poyer was ready to pick it off, running full speed the other direction, he might have gone pick six. Levi Wallace would have had a pick six if it was a good throw on the wide receiver screen. That we Micah Hyde had one where he timed it perfectly and just the bang with the receiver with DJ Moore. It ended up being incomplete. Legitimately until AJ Klein. And the funniest part is the AJ Klein interception. I wrote in my game day thread, no one can convince me that Cam Newton wasn't just done for the day.
I was thinking that he was like, I don't want to play anymore.
He's like, listen, you guys have hit me enough. I'm done with this, because he turned, looked directly at AJ Klein and went, yeah, screw it. And threw the ball directly to AJ Klein.
Did you hear Jonathan Vilma when it happened?
Yeah.
He throws it and Vilma's like, low key is like, he's like, oh my goodness. Like, it's just such a bad throw. Yeah, I am 1,000% with you. I thought Cam was totally like,
he was like, yeah, you guys have hit me enough today. I'm good. Let's just wrap this up here. It just threw it directly to AJ Klein's chest for the one easy interception we had, besides what should have been like 10 on the day. And the one that they get is Jeremy Chin making like an Olympic gymnastics move.
After he comes up on coverage in the flat and then reads it and drops back and then extends and sinks in coverage.
And I would say Stephen Burns here shouting out. I think Vilma's still learning some of the nuance of
and the players' names.
The little chatter back and forth. He's not super fluid and comfortable with the jokes and the little things. His football analysis is really good. He's smart. I like having a defender in there, and you get that different perspective. Everybody's always an offensive player and always rooting for the offense. I kind of like it that he talks about it from a defender standpoint.
And he was a really good player.
Oh, he's fantastic. I think he's going to be good. There were a couple times where there were some awkward silences and some weird. He didn't play well off of his guy, and he wanted to go down the path of the Game of Thrones thing.
He literally was like, "Let's just go back and talk."
No, hold on. Let's go back to that Game of Thrones thread. And it was like literally on like a critical fourth down. But talk about the play, John. Talk about the play. But yeah, there were some plays there where I thought that a game against Cam Newton is not your, great read of how good the secondary is playing, but DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson are legit weapons that you have to be concerned about. And I thought they acquitted themselves well. Those guys have actually had some good games, even with Cam Newton throwing the ball, and they did a good job limiting and controlling things to the point that they did. So I thought that it was, pretty solid overall from their standpoint.
Yeah, DJ Moore is a really, really good receiver. I put DJ Moore in the same category with Terry McLaurin, that if they had consistent or like consistent and or top 10 QB play, they would
that was always Allen Robinson. Always Allen Robinson.
There you go. Boom. Yeah. That's his curse. Like, if DJ Moore just had a QB, he would be able to crush it, much like Terry McLaurin. And even with that, DJ Moore is still able to get open and do some things. And yeah, he burned Dane real bad on that one at the bottom of the screen. Just faked. I think he faked it. He gave a little hesitation with the go route and then just took off. And again, that's a mismatch for Dane. DJ Moore is shifty. He runs good routes. He runs like a 4.4 40. Dane Jackson is in like the 4.6s. So we're just talking a straight 9 route from DJ Moore. DJ Moore should win that 90% of the time, roughly around there. And Robbie Anderson can go as well, but I thought Levi held up well. I thought Dane held up good enough. Levi made several plays where he had some nice jumps. He got physical. He got called for the one pass interference on the tight end, but it was nice to see him stepping up the physicality in coverage as well. We heard the tackling numbers last year from him and how he had like such a low missed tackle rate, and he was stepping up in his tackling and physicality and all that. It was nice to see him be physical in coverage in this game, especially when you pair him with someone now who ideally, knock on wood, going forward, our corner pairing for the rest of this year is Dane Jackson and Levi Wallace. We know how physical and aggressive Dane Jackson is. If Levi is starting to show that as well, it adds a different element and a little more bite to the back end from the corner perspective. And we know Taron is a dog. And then we flip to the safeties. Hyde and Poyer, dogs all day, continue to make plays. They blitzed him a lot in this game. I think Mr. Eric Turner, somewhere in the comments here, was mentioning about the blitzes, that we did a lot of run blitzes against Carolina, and rightfully so against this team. And we saw a lot of those run blitzes starting to come from Hyde and Poyer on the edge, getting a couple pressures on Cam Newton as well, taking on running backs in the backfield and beating tight ends and tackles around the corner. So we saw a really nice versatile game from the safeties, which is what we should expect every single game from Hyde and Poyer. They are Swiss Army knives, but they almost defy the whole like jack of all trades, master of none. They're like jack of all trades, but master at like almost
also,
all of them.
Master of most also.
Master of all jacks that they trade. That's not right, but whatever.
I like it.
Yeah, right, thanks. Appreciate that. I'm going to snippet that and use that as the promo. And then Dane and Levi played well. Taryn should have had an interception. It would have been nice to get a little more turnover action in the passing game against an offense like Carolina that has struggled and that turned the ball over a lot in recent weeks. But again, sometimes you got to tip your hat. Carolina made it a focus and a point to not turn the ball over going into this week because of what has happened in the past couple weeks. And Bills kept things in front of them for the most part, took advantage of an offense that did not have a kicker and that had a quarterback that does not push the ball downfield. They played well and they answered. And this is, again, depending on how some people like to look at it. And I know I was out at dinner last night. I watched the Colts Patriots game recorded around like midnight. And I avoided Twitter.
Yeah. Anyone who didn't see me on Twitter last night, I had a real good time.
Dude, that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't know how some people feel about Mac Jones, but I know you and your glorious pettiness last night, you were hardcore lighting into Mac Jones.
I had some help from Uncle Jumbo's. They supported me in my pettiness and exactly how many tweets I fired off.
It was a lot.
I woke up this morning and scrolled through my mentions and there was a lot. I woke up to 274 alerts.
That's a lot
on my phone. It was a lot.
That's a lot. Even for you, that's a lot.
Oh yeah, no, it some of my tweets got into the Patriots fan Twitter sphere and got rolled around in there for a while. So that was fun. That was fun to find.
And
I had a delightful time.
Yeah, I was saying you had a glorious night last night. And so we see an offense in Carolina that struggled to move the ball downfield and struggled to pass. Potentially a similar thing we could see next week against New England. So I'm very interested to see how this pass defense continues to track and trend against a Patriot offense that honestly, and I feel like someone will say this and go off with it, but this Patriot offense is kind of similar to the Carolina offense. Master of all jacks. That's a
Master of all jacks is actually really good.
That's really good. Well done, Steven. For a similar offense in New England next week that likes to work the ball in the short to intermediate, I think Mac Jones throws a much better deep ball than Cam and pushes the ball deep. And they have different weaponry. He is capable. But an interesting
we saw that deep ball to N'Keal Harry last night.
We did.
That's I think 46 yards in the air.
Yeah, nice throw from him. He has the ability to push it a little bit, but good to see how the Bills are able to work against offenses like this and knowing that we're probably going to see a decent amount of that going forward, given how the Patriots offense works, Atlanta's offense works, and then the Jets offense works. And then we go into the playoffs from there, but nice to see from the secondary in this one.
Yeah, it's a piece of it here. And now the interesting part, I'm going to take a different angle as we pivot over to our Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight. And again, make sure you're checking out a lot of exciting stuff going on in Uncle Jumbo's. They're just rolled out their Niagara Frontier bourbon, which I, again, have thoroughly enjoyed already. I got to go hang out with Chris and Alex over in their distillery. They walked me through the entire process. I got to do a tasting of a couple new things that are going to be coming out that I'm really excited about. They're going to have a tasting room over in Elmwood. Aaron and I are going to be doing a live show from over there, so maybe you'll be able to come join us for a live show over there. Could have some fun. So we're looking forward when that opens up. I think that'll probably be like a I think that's in February, so that'll be more like a free agency draft preview kind of show when we get into that time. It'll be awesome. They won't open up until even after the Super Bowl, so we'll see where things go from there, but excited about it. My Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight is actually going to be more a mix. I'm going to mention Isaiah McKenzie, but not to spotlight him individually. I'm going to spotlight Brian Daboll. I'm going to spotlight the game plan and the things that were there. I was really happy to see the amount of jet motion brought back into this offense. And I like that Josh Allen was under center as much as he was. I like that we are running more play action, not just the RPO. I don't love how many RPOs that we do, but that we were running traditional play action, the bootlegs that were coming out of it, and just using the jet motion more and more. I want to see the breakdown once I see how many times it was, but it was at least, a half dozen, 8, maybe 10 times during the game, maybe more, that we saw it included in the offense. And you could just see how much it adds to what's going on. And Devin Singletary's best run in the touchdown was a direct counter tray off of that, where you brought Ford coming back and he kicked out Reddick, and then you saw Morris right up through the hole, and you saw Singletary follow behind him. That was because it was Isaiah McKenzie going jet motion the other way, get those guys flowing, then you pull the two linemen back the other way. I want to see more of that. And again, I've been as critical of Isaiah McKenzie as anybody from a return standpoint, but I do like what he brings to the offense when the ball's in his hands. I do like the threat that he presents when the ball is in his hands. So I was happy to see that back included in the game plan today. He had one nice third down conversion on a catch. He did have one nice carry that he was able to convert late on that drive that I had as my West Herr drive of the game. He had a nice wildcat carry that they brought Josh in motion out as a receiver, snapped it. That was another really creative play we haven't seen a ton of. So I like that we saw more and more creativity today brought in, and I hope that we continue to see more of that as the season goes. We need to see creativity because we know this offensive line isn't going to let us simply line up in 11 and go right at them all the way down the field. We know we need a little creativity there, and I was happy to see more of it today. So that was my Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight.
Oh, well done. I like how you had multiple mini spotlights and one overarching large spotlight. Well done. I'm still torn. I'm going to go with Devin Singletary.
I like it.
Just for, we talked about it a little earlier, but we've seen the Bills, and Brian Dable said it even going back to the preseason with the approach to running back where, we're going to ride the hot hand, yada, yada. They didn't even get the chance to really see if Breida's hands would be hot or not. They just stuck with Devin Singletary, and they ran more pin pulls, and Singletary was successful. He made guys miss. I cannot stress this enough, how much you need to be able to run the ball. And that doesn't mean you need to be able to run the ball 50-50 or 60-40 or 70-30. There's no clear-cut ratio. I don't care how good Josh Allen is. I don't care how good the passing offense is. You have to be able to run the ball at some point to some varying level of degree. Even if it's just on 2nd and 1 or 3rd and 1s or in the red zone or whatever, you have to be able to run the ball. You need some sort of pivot when teams just play you against the pass. Devin Singletary, as Chris's comment there indicates, Singletary looks strong.
And Douglas added in here, I didn't realize 22 carries was a career high for him today. That's interesting as well.
Someone had a nice comment earlier in the chat too. There you go, Doug. It was also Douglas who says Singletary had 22 carries today, a new career high. Only the 4th time he has had 20 or more carries in a game, and the other 3 times came in his rookie season in 2019.
Wow,
well done,
so 2.5 years. That's a great pull and a fantastic avatar. Yeah, irony.
I didn't even see it. That's awesome. Well done, Douglas. All around the avatar, the comment, the research. Well done. So I liked what Singletary did, and for himself. So that's part of the player spotlight, but more what it represents in this commitment to getting the running game going, establishing rhythm, establishing some sort of cohesion. I mentioned it in disguise coverage last week after what the Bills did against Tampa Bay and what they did earlier in the year against other teams. I think their most successful runs are going to come in the pin and pulls because of what Spencer Brown can do in the open field, because of what Mitch Morse can do in the open field. And even Darrell Williams against Tampa Bay looked good with some gap runs and some pin pull action. Singletary has shown an ability to set up his blocks well and use those runs and pop off big carries. And I think Breida can do the same thing. And if that's the running back rotation we're going with, I'm fine. And so Singletary is my player spotlight. One, because he had a really good game. I know the yards per carry only comes out to 3.9, but he got tough yards. He made Carolina have to account for the running game. Part of the reason
very few negative or 0-yard runs. He might have had more 1, 2s, and 3s than I wanted, but a lot of that was 4-minute drill stuff when they knew it was coming. True. And he also sprinkled in plenty of those 6s and 8s and nice runs as well. Plus the scoring run was 16.
1,000%. And that's also going to the best running teams, right? They have runs where they only get 1 or 2 or 3, but then they
Jonathan Taylor last night.
There you go. Look at that. And any good running back that you point to, or good running team, they're going to have those where now just 1 yard, 2 yards, whatever. And then, but it's that ability to pop off big runs or be successful in the run when you need to. There's so many positives that can result for an offense when you're able to get a running game going. And Singletary is my spotlight because 1, he played good, but 2, I think what the commitment to him in this game and the style of runs that the Bills ran represents some sort of philosophical adjustment on the offense that is needed going forward, especially as we start to play certain teams and certain areas and certain weather pieces going forward. We need to be able to have that piece of the offense going forward to, one, just help Josh, two, help the offense and establish some sort of identity in that piece.
So Kyle Slaggy, our man, if you're not reading his takeaways and his breakdowns, you're missing out. Check him out on the roundup on Monday nights. But he's checking in to say, did we mention that Spencer Brown drank a beer? That would explain, if he was a bit inebriated, how he had the 5 penalties and had to get benched for a minute to
not a good game out.
But yeah, it was at least fun to see him and Diggs over there celebrating with a beverage. And a quick shout out for some honorable mention for the Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight. Obviously, Gabe Davis with 2 touchdowns today. Really strong game from him. And shout out for F.A. Obata, 2 sacks today.
Yes,
really making his presence known at a moment where Carolina had a chance to get back into that game. It was never all that close. The Bills were up by 2 scores for a pretty healthy stretch there. But they had a chance to get back into it, and that stretch there where Obata had 2 sacks was really powerful.
And what was nice from Obata too is, like what we mentioned, it's not like it was, the Bills brought a blitz and the line for Carolina didn't adjust and Obata came free. He straight up beat his guy one-on-one. And I don't care who it was. If you're saying, Carolina's line isn't good, so Cam Irving's not good. I don't care. He won one-on-one and got a sack. Something that we have not seen put together very much this year for the Bills defensive line, beating someone one-on-one and also getting the sack. So,
Spencer Brown had the combo today. He was getting beat for sacks and giving up penalties with the real special.
This is why but again, this is where we're living the rest of the year. Spencer Brown should not have been playing this year. The fact that he's like a savior for our offensive line is.
Whole separate issue on its own. So as we pivot over to our final 2 segments, we'll start with special teams. Again, I thought the return game was really nice today. Marcus Stevenson, 2 punt returns, 16 to 17 yards. One, he made 4 different guys miss to be able to create some room.
Even Jonathan Vilma called it out. He was like, elusive.
Yeah, look at that. Obviously Tyler Bass made all of his kicks, 1 for 1 on field goals, 4 for 4 on extra points. Isaiah McKenzie, it was a really tough spot to be in when you have a wide receiver kicking off and you don't know where the ball's going to go. It's squibbing and bouncing and putting you in a weird spot. McKenzie and Stevenson did as well as you could in those positions. And honestly, McKenzie did really well on the one, set up really good field position late on that final drive that ended up being the scoring drive, where he had the 28-yarder to get it back almost to midfield. Where he set up a little something there. So I really like the way that they're doing that. I like the split with Stevenson back as the primary returner and McKenzie focusing on offense. I think that's a good spot for us. I will say, after praising how Matt Hawk has had a really good second half of the season and probably one of his best games as a Bill last week, he struggled today. Not a lot of good play. Only had 1 punt inside the 20. Didn't have any touchbacks but it's because almost all of them were short, off a lot of 38 and 39 and 36. They weren't awesome conditions today.
Not great hang time for his punts either.
Just didn't have great. It's just a bad game for him. Closer to what he was early in the season. We need him to be back to what he's been the last couple games, where he's been at least neutral, net positive. He had the one amazing coffin corner, at the end there to give the Bills a shot in overtime against the Buccaneers. That was his best play as the Buffalo Bill. We need more of that to get us into a spot to have a chance here, but not a great game today. From a coaching standpoint, or did anything else to add for special teams?
No, I think you're spot on. It's a shame Hawk had the performance that he did this game because he kicked really well against Tampa.
Yeah, he had good stretch.
Low liner kicks today, not good distance, not great hang time. The bigger thing, that's big because special teams and punting is a big piece, but I want to see Isaiah McKenzie incorporated more into the offense. I want to see more of those niche and gadget plays from him. And if order for that to happen, that means more primary return duties from Marquez Stevenson. We all should want that collectively because this offense is better with Isaiah McKenzie in the fold.
Absolutely. And I know a couple of people have brought that up. Marquez Stevenson is averaging almost double what
and he looks good.
Isaiah McKenzie didn't punt return. Like anybody say, well, I think McKenzie could do even more than Stevenson. He didn't. Stevenson is doing he didn't. He had a chance for a long stretch. Stevenson is averaging almost double the punt return yardage of what Isaiah McKenzie has. So I think some people have it in their minds of what they think Isaiah McKenzie could do versus what he was actually showing that he was doing. So I like that he's still active. I like that he's still part of the game plan. I like that Marcus Stevenson is our primary returner. I think he's shown more in that part of the game.
And he's shown some nice ball security too. Even like he had the one punt catch today running towards like if you're looking from the broadcast view, the top sideline going right to left. And he just ran to the sideline and just perfectly caught it and like kind of toe tapped and went out of bounds. And I was like, oh, that was a really nice secure catch. Like, I prefer him in the return game, not just because it gives McKenzie more work into the offense, but because of what Stevenson is, one, shown with the ball, and two, the lack of security decision-making issues that we have with McKenzie.
Yeah. So, again, I'm happy to have McKenzie active, happy to have him part of the game plan, and a nice luxury as a backup returner to have in that spot.
1,000%.
As we pivot over to coaching, I thought today was a positive. I thought that we had good time management. I like that they were able to get the drive set up to be able to get points at the end of the first half. Obviously weren't able to score the touchdown. Josh missed on a couple on that one, but able to get points there. I loved the 4th and 2 to go for it at the end to really put the game away and to get the touchdown there. The red zone efficiency and again, reinserting the jet motion and more play action into the game plan. We saw them be effective. Our best red zone game of the season, 4 out of 5 trips were touchdowns. All 5 were scores. That's about as good as you can possibly ask for to be able to do it.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I thought the numbers were going to be skewed a little at the end because they were just like milking the clock. And then I was like, okay, it's going to be 3 out of 2 for touchdown percentage, but then they go for it and get the touchdown. That was nice to see. That efficiency is huge. So that's 80% red zone touchdown percentage. That is very, very encouraging for this Bills offense that has shown some inconsistency in the red zone. Overall, I liked the game plan offensively, especially once they started to pivot towards the run a little bit more after that first drive. I thought, again, Carolina's defense is good. They have shown that they can be susceptible to the run. I wanted to see them attack with the run. I like the type of runs that they used and how they got Singletary into rhythm and attacked. And then the play action piece off of that, really well coordinated game. I thought really from the second drive of the offense third drive on, I felt like the rhythm was really good for the offense. And then when it came to the defense, hold them to 14. I thought they played more aggressive in this game. 1, to stop the run. 2, because they weren't fearful of getting beat vertically. 3, because there was no kicking game. So they could take chances because they knew, well, we're pretty much going to have to get 4 down stops once they cross midfield type of thing. So it altered the defensive game plan a little bit. But again, showing that you have the ability to be like, okay, this is what this team is going to do 40 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah, it's also dangerous to be in that spot because a lot of defenses benefit from conservative coaching decisions where they probably should have gone for it but didn't. And now Carolina was just going for it every time because they didn't have a kicker. It was forcing the analytics perfect storm, which is actually harder for defenses because now you get 4 turns to convert everyone. So yeah, and obviously if the 3 times that they went for it didn't get it, if the kick field goes there, it's 31-23. So it's not like that was the difference in the game or anything like that. But it certainly was a factor in both teams' decision making.
1,000%. And you see, I think the stat was at one point, Carolina was 1 out of 5 for their 4th down attempts. So nice execution and game plan there from defense.
They ended 1 out of 5.
Oh, there you go. Yep. They ended 1 out of 5. So again, being able to pivot in the moment and adjust both offensively and defensively, that's what we need to see from this team week after week. It's something that we haven't seen in some of their losses, their ability to adjust and pivot in real time in the moment. And again, that's what we saw last year. It was such a hallmark of this team being able to course correct drive to drive, quarter to quarter, week to week, whatever have you. So nice to see from the Bills. I thought they executed well. And I'm sure somebody's going to come on right now and say, well, they shouldn't have gone for that 4th down and they should have kicked the field goal. So we should fire McDermott. But to each his own. I saw somebody also said that Matt Hawk needs to be cut because he's terrible, but like he just had an amazing game. We just need to be not so short-sighted. That's a whole conversation for another time. But the Bills won, so right.
He was bad today. It's okay to criticize him.
1,000%.
Our entire culture, like the whole people want to go on a rant about cancel culture. The fact that people are only capable of one default response that if anyone does anything wrong, the only response is you should lose your job. You need to be removed from that position. That's the only possible thing that would teach you a lesson, is that you need to be fired, you need to be cut, you need to be released, you need to be removed for your position, whatever profession you're in. Anytime someone needs to be canceled, they need to be fired. That's the only thing that could possibly fix anything. And that's the go-to with this team, is players need to be released, coaches need to be fired. Whatever.
And it's funny because that, like, the whole cancel culture piece has spilled into, I think, sports. And I don't think cancel culture is necessarily like bad, but there's a difference.
Believe me, there are people that need to be canceled. It's totally fine.
1,000%.
I'm glad that people are being held accountable. I wish we had a little more, nuance in our degrees of what the repercussions can be.
And it's different in a performance-based arena, such as sports, where if someone fails on a play, you cannot fire them just because they failed on that one play. Like, there's a difference.
Hell, absolutely. No matter what happens, Western New York has a national title this year. His alma mater, St. Bonaventure, won the National Collegiate Rugby title last weekend. Go Bonas, go Bills, get the tables. We got a national championship in Western New York. I love to hear it.
That. Yeah. Good time. So everybody's winning. We're all we got another
one. Pad in here. Pad's always there for us all the time.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
Should fire Frazier for not talking McDermott out of the 4th and 2 as the assistant head coach.
Fire everyone.
Good win, guys. Creativity there from Pad, and I like
fire them all. Fire them all. Just restart. Bring in Marone and Rex Ryan. Let's bring in Dick Duran for quality control.
The repeated, just revolving door of coaches before we started to make the playoffs every year under Sean McDermott. Let's just fire them and just trust that, obviously the rest of the Pagula's hiring decisions have been flawless.
Sabres are killing it.
I trust them to, just find another, Rex Ryan or Sabres coach that's probably going to be way better than Sean McDermott and this staff. So we should definitely roll the dice on that.
Maybe Ralph Kruger knows how to do football and he's willing to come do football. That'd be sweet.
It'd be like a reverse Ted Lasso, like a reverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where it's bad.
I meant soccer guy who comes and does American football, but
no, I just meant where a guy comes in and does good stuff and
just
we like
does
him.
Terrible things. Yeah. So give the folks your final thoughts here on what today meant and what it means going forward.
Today meant in its simplest form, a win coupled with a timeout. Can't get my thought because Ned gave an awesome super chat donation. Thank you so much, Ned. And awesome comment here saying agreed. Thanks, John and Anthony, for putting out a great show as always. I think it means Greg. Merry Christmas and long-term success to you both. Thank you very much, Ned. I appreciate it.
Very much. And honestly, you could be bonus points if it was just a slight. Just
maybe he's typing it on his phone and it auto-corrected. There's a lot of things that can happen.
I respect it. I respect it, honestly.
But
I've been called worse already today.
I call you terrible things offline all the time. But yeah, it's a win coupled with a Pats loss last night, which means next Sunday in New England is a huge, huge, huge game. In theory, that's funny. In theory, you should see the Bills be able to beat Atlanta and beat the Jets. If the Bills beat New England and win out, the division is theirs. We get at least one home playoff game. I know there's a lot of warts on this team, but no one is perfect in the AFC. It's unfortunate that Kansas City is sitting there right now.
Lots of perfect teams. People regularly told me that the Cardinals are the best team in the NFL. They don't lose ugly games to bad teams, like they lost badly to the Carolina Panthers. And wait, hold on, I'm just looking at the scores today. The Arizona Cardinals lost to the Detroit Lions 30-12. So for anybody who wants to throw around all the comments about the Bills are the only team that gag on, and choke away these bad games against bad teams and the lose games they're not supposed to, no. Every single team in the NFL has had embarrassing games this year. The Arizona Cardinals, with home field advantage and the number 1 seed on the line, not only lost to the Detroit Lions, they got housed by the Detroit Lions.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, coming out of a bye week, got beat by a Washington team that the Bills destroyed.
Taylor Heineke, after they had lost to Trevor Siemian before the bye. Every single team. The Titans lost to the Jets when they still had Derrick Henry. it's crazy, weird stuff happens.
This AFC is wide open, and I know people get down in the dumps, and we're very reactionary and emotional as a fan base because of what we have been through as a fan base, and it's easy to think the sky is falling again and the wool has been pulled over our eyes and everything is terrible. But the AFC is wide open. Getting a home playoff game and winning the division helps. We'll see what comes of it going forward, but it was nice to see the Bills be able to adjust, course correct for some things. Again, it's unfortunate what happened to Carolina's kicker today. It's unfortunate they don't have Christian McCaffrey, and it's unfortunate they've got some guys banged up, and they're in a state of turmoil a bit with their coaching staff and on-field execution and all that. But sign of a good team, take advantage of that, take advantage of those weaknesses, exploit them, beat them over and over at it. The Bills did. 31-14. We got to win. The division is back on the menu. And on to New England.
Absolutely. And, I think this is all anybody could ask for. Like you said, that the Bills now control their own destiny. We are in a spot where if we beat the New England Patriots, the Atlanta Falcons, and the New York Jets, and I can tell you, it looks like that is going to be in play. Right now, they have New England as a 2-point early favorite over under a 44, but they have the Patriots -2 for next week. Going in there, it's going to be a 1:00 game in New England. The Bills control their own dynasty, or their own destiny, and they're able to, and they control their own dynasty, which is fantastic. Being able to be in control of the outcome of what happens, and we don't have to just cross our fingers and wish and hope. They can be able to go through, control things that they need to, get into a position where they can get hot at the right time, get people back, get healthy, and be able to go on a run here that can still be very fun and exciting. I think that they've now put themselves into a position where I hope most fans realize making the playoffs is a reality, that they look very, very likely to make the playoffs. We'll root for the right teams to be able to go here and be able to win the games that they need to. But the Bills now control their own destiny and are going to be able to be in a position where they can control what happens based on the outcome of their performance. And now going in there, we get to find out, hey, how much of that New England game was just the weird anomaly of the conditions and the weather, and how much of that was really the talent of the teams. And we're going to find out in real time in 7 days from now, in a game that now will turn into a fantastic, important game for all of the division on the line to be able to be there. So really excited to see it. We are going to be there for you all the time. We're going to shuffle some things around with the schedule for this week. I'm going to be heading back to New York, so we're going to be moving the Cover One preview show to Tuesday night. The Hoof will now be following Anthony and Disguise coverage on Wednesday. We will then take a little bit of a break over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and be back for you guys with the post-game show following the Patriots game. But we are going to have all kinds of stuff set up for you to listen through. So make sure you're checking out Cover One Roundup tomorrow night, followed by the Air Raid Hour. So excited to have Steve and Dave over on the team with us. Then we're going to go into having, I think, still another film room on Tuesday. I know we're still working some things out with Eric's new schedule to be able to work some things out. Please, if you're the kind of person that whatever, put out good energy, pray, give positive thoughts. Keep a shout out for our man Eric, who's now in a dangerous position protecting our freedoms here in the U.S. down on the southern border. So hopefully Eric's as safe and as healthy as he can be and get himself back home to his family as soon as possible. But still finding time to grind that tape and to be able to put together the film rooms for everybody.
Dude, then we'll be going
sleep live. Yeah, literally. We'll be going live immediately following for the Cover One preview show on Tuesday night. Anthony with Disguise coverage on Wednesday, followed by the Hoof on Wednesday night. We're going to be there for you with everything. Thank you for our sponsors, Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you're checking out the Underdog Fantasy app with the use promo code Cover1 to get yourself 10 free dollars. Uncle Jumbo's, all the exciting stuff coming for them. Can't wait to see their new tasting room on Elmwood and all the new Niagara Frontier bourbon and the new flavors that are coming out from that new different proofs that they're going to have with all kinds of different things they're doing, along with everything that's going on over at Herr, the largest auto group in Western New York. Make sure you're checking them out for all your automotive needs. But on behalf of Anthony Prohaska, I am Greg Tompsett. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo, and we